Namaste, everyone, and welcome to our fourth session with Jeffrey G. We're very lucky to have him and all of you join us today for our our monthly sessions. To start off, I want to invite our Vice President of CHCC, Kushagra Sharma Ji, to officially start the event and the session.
Namaste, everyone. Very nice to see everyone here. It's a very beautiful day, and I hope everyone had a great day outside in the sun. But now it's the perfect time to come inside as the sun is setting, so we can all enjoy today's lecture by Kavinda Rishi. Now, without any further ado, I'd like to introduce our MCs for today. Our first MC is Vedanshi Patelji. So Vedanshi ji, she's been doing MCs for the last few events as well. So it's a pleasure to have her on board. Next, I'd like to invite our very own Kavita Menanji. So Kavita Menanji has been with us from the start. She's been very instrumental to this organization as well. Kavita ji was away on holidays and we missed her while she was away, but it's nice to see her back. And without any further ado, I'd like to hand it over to our MCs for today's event. Namaste, everyone.
Namaste, everyone. So to start off the event, I will be introducing Kashyap Desai-ji. So Kashyap Desai-ji is a licensed professional engineer with specialty in sustainable built environment, complex mechanical HVAC solutions, and related engineering aspects. He is working with the Technical Services Group at Laboratories Canada as part of PSPC, and as part of his volunteer activities, Kashyap ji manages Vedic, Sanskriti, and Garvi Gujarat, Ottawa to serve the community, mainly in Greater Ottawa and Eastern Ontario region. So now Kashyap ji will be giving us an introduction about the organization.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a great pleasure to be with all of you here. Just to give a very brief introduction, Vedic Sanskriti and Garvi Gujarat, Ottawa, is Gujarat Association of Canada, are federally registered non-profit organizations. And about 7-8 years ago, we felt a need to integrate the youth, students, and newcomers, because particularly in the Ottawa area, we felt that they are not, they were having difficulties with various aspects, whether it's the student life or the professional life. And through that initiative, we found that if there is a cultural element or an art and heritage element, then that could benefit everyone in the society. So as part of Vedic Sanskriti initiatives, we do a few sort of objectives. One of them is helping mentoring students and newcomers to the region. We also organize a lot of cultural events, arts and culture. And it's been a pleasure working with Kavita ji many times. And then apart from that, we also work collaboratively with other organizations, like-minded organizations, where we can promote our, any long-term solutions to integrate our community. As part of Garvi Gujarat, that is a relatively newer initiative. We have started weekly Gujarati radio program on Chin Radio, which is a multicultural station. And the idea would be that if we get enough youths, and it's not only Gujarati, this was an opportunity we got for the Gujarati language, but in all the languages, to promote our initiatives, broadly, even from a CHCC perspective, because the Canadian Hindu Chamber of Commerce has a much, much larger, broader perspective. Our initiatives into news, media, and broadcasting might help quite a lot. Apart from getting the youths of today an opportunity so that we take care of the next generation. And other initiatives, part of Garvi Gujarat, is to specifically zero in on the Western Indian states of Gujarat, Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan. So these are the two initiatives. Our major focus being based in Ottawa is Ottawa, Eastern Ontario. But we get from time to time newcomer students and youths from all across Ontario and also partly from Quebec region and a few from across other provinces as well. So that's a little brief introduction of myself and my team. Vedic Sanskriti and Garvi Gujarat is a 100% volunteer-based organization. We do not have any direct revenues like membership fees or anything like that. And so the whole idea is to help, motivate, mentor, work together with all the newcomer students, and then how can we bring them into our global perspective and our global sort of initiative. And before closing, I'm very happy and thank all the executive members of Canadian Hindu Chamber of Commerce to consider Vedic Sanskriti to become part of this very noble and very important initiative. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Desai-ji, for joining us. And we're very happy to announce that CHCC has signed an MOU with the organization. And this is a huge step forward. And we thank one of our directors, Vitesh Sahuji, as well, for helping us connect with them. On top of that, I do want to recognize all the hard work all of our board of directors do to make these events possible. We have Naresh Chavda-ji. He's currently in Ontario, originally from Gujarat, India. We have our Vice President Kushagar Sharma-ji, currently in Ottawa, originally from Himachal. We have Kishore Maheshwar-ji, currently in Calgary, Alberta, but originally from Pakistan. We have Thiru Sivaswamy, currently in Toronto, Ontario, originally from Sri Lanka. Ritesh Sahuji, currently in Ottawa, Ontario, originally from Madhya Pradesh, India. We have Rashmikant Patelji, currently in Muskoka region of Ontario, originally from Gujarat, India. Ganesh Paridaji, he is also in Scarborough, Ontario, originally from Odisha, India. Bhavish Bhattji, currently in Brampton, Ontario, originally from Gujarat, India. Suresh Agrawalji, he's currently in Ontario, originally from Haryana, India. We have Bhadresh Kumar Patelji, originally from, currently in Guelph, Ontario, originally from Gujarat, India. Adit Trivedi, he is currently in Canada and originally from Western Uttar Pradesh. Amit Bijol Chaudhry, he's also in Toronto, Ontario, and originally from Ghaziapur, Bangladesh. Prashirtan Prabhankar Kiranji, he is currently in Montreal, Quebec, and he is from Kerala, India. So we have representations from all across, and also the hard work of our advisory board members who are truly one of the backbones. Amit Goyalji, currently in Toronto, Ontario here. We have Surinder Sharma ji in Mississauga, Ontario. And we have Dhaval Shah ji, originally from Gujarat, India, and currently in the Ontario region. As well as Ashwin K. Dutt ji, he's also in the Ontario region, originally from Punjab, India. So we're really thankful to all of our board of directors, as well as the advisory members who have worked very hard to make all these events and sessions really possible. Now, without further ado, I want to invite Kavita Menon ji to introduce our main speaker for this evening. Kavita ji.
Thank you, Maharshi ji, for that warm introduction. Thank you, everyone. I hope you're all having a good evening. It's another Sunday, and this is our second session. Who are you actually serving is the topic that we are going to discuss today, as we all know. Before we begin further, I was reading an article about goddess Lakshmi. We are the Canadian Hindu Chamber of Commerce, most of us are into some sort of business where we invoke the presence of Goddess Lakshmi. So one of the feature of Goddess Lakshmi in Sanskrit, it says Satyanusarani Lakshmi, which means wealth follows truthfulness. Where there is honesty, Goddess Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth, resides. Goddess Lakshmi is known for her affinity for honesty and cleanliness, they say. It is better to let prosperity take its course by being truthful because wealth follows honesty. So I hope we all get the blessings of Goddess Varalakshmi so that we can live a prosperous life ahead. Without further delay, let me introduce our speaker. We all know he doesn't need a big introduction, but still it's my duty. For those who doesn't know Jeffrey Armstrong ji, his spiritual name is Rishi Kavindra. He's a philosopher, he's a practitioner and teacher of the Vedas for over 40 years. Prior to his teaching, he had successful career as an executive in Silicon Valley and spent 5 years in an ashram as a brahmacharya or monk. For 15 years, he was a corporate executive in Silicon Valley and a speaker for Fortune 500 companies and was written about regularly in USA Today, the Wall Street Journal, LA Times, Say No Say, Mercury News, Discover Magazine, CNN, Stern, and many others. We are lucky to host the second of 8 series event with Rishi Kavindra ji. Jeffrey ji, namaste. We want to congratulate you on getting the award for the Distinguished Indologist Award from the ICCR, which is the Interfaith Center on Corporate Responsibility. So for those who doesn't know what an Indologist is, it's a South Asian studies. It is the academic study of the history, the culture, languages, and literature of Indian subcontinent. And we must, all those who have attended like the previous session knows that, oh my God, Jeffrey ji knows a lot about our subcontinent and our culture, and it's always a blessing to hear from him. So we are really happy to have you, Jeffrey ji. Over to you. Warm welcome. I hope you're having a good summer, and thank you so much and congratulations.
Thank you so much, Kavita. And to everyone, it is an exciting privilege and an honor to be of seva to you all and to be participating in this great historical moment, which I have named the Hindu Vedic Renaissance. And others are beginning to use that term because that is exactly what this is. It's an opportunity to reestablish the greatness of the Vedic civilization. And since the question tonight is, who are you actually serving? To whom is your seva addressed? Could I reframe that so that we use the Sanskritam? And I was so excited and happy to hear that Vedic Sanskritam is also being represented in an active and dynamic way, because this is one of the important issues of our conversation. So the first thing I'd like to bring to your attention and alert you to is to think strategically. Think of what we're doing together here and of what you're doing as a strategic enterprise that was planned in previous lifetimes and that all of us volunteered at a certain point in the past to be part of a team of representatives who would go to other places in the world and bring the Vedic knowledge to those places in a strategic and coherent way. So I want you to think strategy. And so there's 2 things I need to say first. The good news and the bad news, right? There's always that. And the good news is that the Vedic culture is the richest civilization and culture in a multitude of ways that exists on our planet. Secondly, its language is the most precise language that exists on our planet in multitude of ways that I addressed previously, in both its phonetics, nirukta, and its etymology, and its vyakarana, and its grammar, and its chandas, and its poetry. It is above and beyond any other language on our planet. So this is a very important strategic understanding for us. I think it's so ironic, don't you, that in order to keep India peaceful during the transition from British rule, English became the dominant language of the culture. This is insult to injury, isn't it? And especially because English is the colonizing language. So this is a problem that we're going to have to address. And it's part of what I'm bringing forward to you tonight. It is partly this recognition that English has been working as your worst enemy. And I'll remind you again, one of the biggest problems for anyone who's from India, speaks a language from India, any one of the languages, speaking English, if you speak too fast, no one will know what you just said. So just a general bit of advice, slow down. And imagine that you're talking to dummies who don't understand, because that's the case. They may not be dummies in the ultimate sense, but let's say they're unaware of what you're sharing. Now this raises the next question, and that is that the library of Vedic Vidya is vast, so substantial that one could get lost in it. So let me remind you what the great Acharya's answer to that was. They eliminated all those different texts from the primary conversation and reduced them to the Prasthana Trayi, the 3 pillars of Vedic evidence, the 10 principal Upanishads, the Vedanta Sutras of Veda Vyasadeva, and the Bhagavad-Gita given on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Those are considered to be the Prasthana Trayi, the 3 pillars of Vedic evidence. So if we're going to be strategic as a community, we're going to have to choose at least one of those, and eventually all 3, but at least one to represent us. And I think you can immediately see where I'm going with this. The answer is not the 10 principal Upanishads, still too much for most people. It is not the Vedanta Sutras of Veda Vyasadeva, 550 shlokas or sutras of very dense Sanskrit and very profound Vedic knowing. So this does mean we need a user's manual, don't we? To combat the one-book religions propaganda, you need to become a one-book culture for a little while so that everyone has a unified position and stance, and so it becomes doable and you don't have to learn the whole of the Vedas, or you don't argue because you're from Tamil or someone else is from Gujarat or someone else is from another location. It doesn't matter which part of Bharat you're from. It matters which of those 3 texts will you teach your children very carefully so that they can repeat it. Which of those texts will you use as the number 1 text to lead the entire civilization forward? And it's no accident if you just reread or take a look at, whichever is most useful, the Mahabharata, you understand that the Bhagavad-Gita was given as a strategic bit of philosophical precision in the midst of the 100,000 verses of the Mahabharata, while sketching out a political situation every bit as complex or more than the one that we're looking at in the world right now. So I'm bringing this to your attention because I would like you to think that you're not really doing business. That's just the name of what you're doing. What you're actually becoming is ambassadors of Bhagavan. And I purposely said Bhagavan and not Brahman. So before we go any further, I want to read to you verse 551, or chapter 14, verse 27. And Sri Bhagavan is speaking to Arjuna definitively in this chapter, on the eve of the 15th chapter. And he says, Brahmano hi pratistaham, amritasya yayasya cha, svastayasya chadarmasya, sukhasyanikasya cha. And pardon my poor pronunciation. And the verse says in English, Bhagavan is speaking, for I am the resting place of Brahman. I am the unlimited source of the nectar of immortality. I am that which always exists and can never perish. I am the essence of all that is. I am never-ending joy and unlimited ecstasy, and I am the one unique being who encompasses all that exists. So there should never again be a discussion or argument, that is to say, about whether Bhagavan precedes Brahman or Brahman precedes Bhagavan. There's no question of preceding because there's no time there. But the question is which one should be spoken of as the source of the other, and Bhagavan has answered that for us. Now, that doesn't diminish anyone's viewpoint, but it means we now can present a uniform discussion which clears the chaos surrounding the civilization of Bharat, which has now fragmented everything at a time. So this is the opportunity when, by bringing it back into focus, everything will change. And as you may remember from the previous classes, there are two things that everyone like yourselves, all the leaders of the Vedic community, need to do immediately, as soon as possible. And one is stop using Christian terminology to describe your culture. Full stop. Completely stop. Take all Christian words out of any translation, scratch them out, replace them with their original Sanskrit. Do not say God, do not say sin, do not say hell, do not say heaven. Do not say any of those words again in the context of explaining the Sanskrit Veda. Okay? Number two, as I just said, become strategic. So this means learn about 100, might I say 108, Sanskrit words that are absolutely mandatory for describing the Vedic civilization. Tell me a synonym. Everyone know what that is? Tell me a synonym for the word Brahman in English. Think for a second. Does any word come to mind? Is there a word for Brahman in English? No. Okay. How about Prakriti? Is Mother Nature sufficient? No. Is matter sufficient? No. Do scientists discuss it? No. Because what is a scientist in the modern world? It's someone who cares how the universe does things, but has no care about who does them. So the definition of a modern scientist is someone who's completely given up philosophy, couldn't care less about Vedanta, and only wants to manipulate matter. So, is that the same as Samkhya? Na iti, na iti? No, not at all. Because Samkhya is Vedanta, or rather Vedanta is the crown jewel of Sankhya. And as a result, the great acharyas from Shankara to Ramanuja to Madhva to Nimbarka, each one of them, all of them, Vishnu Swami, Swaminarayan organization, most recently, their greatest acharyas and pundits wrote a tika on the Prasthana Trayi, the 10 Upanishads, the Vedanta Sutras, and the Gita. But all of them know that this Prasthana Trayi is the place where the attention should be focused. And yet, to bring those books into translation so far, everyone has used the wrong English as they translated. And if you don't change this, and this is why I translated the Gita the way I did, not because I'm a better Sanskritist, because my English is better, because I know the problem. So I took out all of the compromising, colonizing Christian words from the discussion, gone, never to be there again. I didn't even keep them in, I didn't even put them in an appendix in the book. Do you take your appendix out? Do you keep it in your pocket or do you throw it away? I threw it away. There'll be another book soon that explains what words not to use and why. So I really want you to think of this strategically. And what I'm saying is that every single one of you is already volunteered in a previous life to be an ambassador of your culture, to perform this seva that you're proposing to perform and are already performing. And as I said to you before, this is why when you do business, it is not going to be business as usual. It is not going to be entrepreneur only making profit. It is going to be mantrapreneur working for Dharma. And so what I want you to understand is that every single one of us, each in our own way, all of us volunteered in a previous life to be ambassadors of the Hindu Vedic Sanatana Dharma culture. And so this is the historical moment in which we're now going to do that. And if we can't stop quarreling, can't stop being regionalist, can't stop arguing Tamil against Sanskrit and all of these other unhelpful disagreements, our biodiversity will sink the ship. Otherwise, we'll know that Sanskrit is the language that has no equal in any other civilization, and it's the place on which to stand as we bring this knowledge forward to the world, is to stand on Sanskrit. Now, does this take away all of the biodiversity? Does that mean if you like Shiva more, you shouldn't? No, I didn't say that. But it means if you're going to quote something as the final Vedantic, precise authority, you must consult the Bhagavad-Gita and use that as your standard public release statement. If you release a statement to the public, it's that first, and then you can explain, oh, and by the way, we have a lot of diverse entities in our worldview, so don't be surprised to know that there are many characters that we find amazing and that we adore because our, ready, worldview is different than yours. You have a one lifetime. Now, don't all the scientists have a one lifetime worldview? I don't know one that doesn't. Then they're just Abrahamic, they're just engineers that are like Abrahamic religions. They have only one lifetime. Isn't this the biggest difference between our Vedic culture and the rest of the one lifetime cultures? They have one lifetime. No wonder they're uptight. No wonder they're afraid. No wonder they're chaotic. No wonder they're launching wars and stealing everything. And you know, I've spoken some of it, and I hope to speak more in the future of how that happened so we don't let it happen again. But I know you've come together to do Dharmic organizations that not only take energy from Prakriti, but give it back. And that you're honoring 7 generations behind you and preparing for 7 in front of you. That is the Vedic Seva. That is Sanatana Dharma. That is what your organization, what my life is dedicated to. And what makes me unique, obviously, we all were at the same meeting in our previous life when we decided to do this together. The only difference is I decided to take the white body and you decided to come in the brown bodies. But we decided to do the very same thing. Chapter 10, Bhagavad-Gita, verses 8, 9, 10, and 11, championed by all of the acharyas as the 4 core verses of the Bhagavad-Gita. Aham sarvasa yaprabhavo matak sarvam pravartate itimadva bhajanti mam buddha bhava samanvita machchita madgata prana bodhiyantak parasparam kathayantas chamam nityam tushanticha ramanticha tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tvam yena mam upayantite tesham evanukam partham aham agyana jam tamaha nashami atma bhavasya jnana dipena bhasvataha. I am the source of everything, Bhagavan says. From me the entire creation flows. Knowing this, the wise adore me with all their heart. Their thoughts dwell in me, their lives are surrendered unto me, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss, enlightening one another and conversing about me to those who are constantly devoted and adore me with purest seva. I give the understanding by which they may come to me, out of compassion for them. I, who am dwelling within their heart, destroy the darkness born of ignorance with the shining lamp of knowledge. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is just a quick summary of my proposal to you. That what you are excited about within the Vedic civilization, please stay excited about it, become a specialist in it, represent your regional language and all of the other great things that you've been given. Cherish them and bring them forward at the appropriate moment. Never argue them or confuse them with the primary purpose of Vedic civilization, though. That is what the great acharyas like Shankara, Ramanuja, and all the others knew, stood for, and showed a biodiversity of. So I'll end with this. What if you had 7 uncles? Let's call them the 7 great uncles. And they were all flying on their private jet together, and the plane crashed and all of them were killed. And they each left you a legacy. Which legacy would you reject? None of them. You would accept all of their legacies with pride and excitement and gratitude, and then you would dedicate yourself to using those legacies in their seva, in the name of their greatness. And so this is the message that I'm sharing with you today, is that be very strategic and careful. Remove the right English words, reframe the conversation, as I said previously, learn enough Sanskrit words and teach them to your children so that when someone says, "Can you represent your culture to me?" you say, "How many Sanskrit words do you know?" And if they say none, then you say, "Can I share a few with you? May I teach you a few?" And if they say, "No," it's the wrong person. They're not adhikari. Don't waste your time. If they say, "Yes, please do," now we have a friend and a conversation, and now you can bring them into the actual conversation. I think I've used up my time. Is it so? I have 10 more? Oh my. All right then. Let me elaborate just a little bit upon this. It's called reframing, but reframing means taking charge of the conversation. Now, this is a strategic activity that everyone in the Hindu Vedic community now needs to learn. And you need to arrange for it to be taught to your children so that they're not lost to you in this cultural transition and this chaotic time in history. It's very important. There are several different things that need to be transplanted across from the Vedic civilization. And you may remember before I discussed these a little bit, these are the Veda Angas, aren't they? What are the Veda Angas? The limbs of the Veda, 4 of which I just represented to you as the 4 departments of Sanskrit. Okay? So, the first of them is Jyotish. Jyotish is the science of mathematics and astronomy that is based in the understanding that we're immortal beings who cannot die, and going from one lifetime to another lifetime to another lifetime. And each time as we come back, the time of our arrival back is an indicator of the karmic patterns that we're carrying with us as a result of our previous lifetimes, and they help us to ascertain our Ayurvedic body type, the particular qualities and characteristics to look for in each person in their Gurukula training, to see if indeed those are present, to foster those and fan their development so that we know who's meant to be a Kshatriya, who's meant to be a Brahmin, who's meant to be a Vaishya, who's meant to be a Shudra. None of those are castes. Those are all ways of working. They're nothing to do with birth family. They're everything to do with what we brought in. And so far, the discussion of what we bring in, which is the basis of our civilization, is not being conducted correctly. It is not being conducted, as if we're afraid to talk about Jyotish to the Abrahamic religions and the modern day scientists. So remember, my definition of a modern day scientist is someone who cares a lot about how the world works and couldn't care less about where it came from. And so we're catering to them in this conversation, instead of saying, don't you understand that time is the ultimate science? And Jyotish is called Kala Shastra, the science of time. And if you don't learn how to contextualize the Vedic civilization using Jyotish, then your illiteracy of that prevents you from explaining one of the 6 Veda Angas, the limbs of the Veda. And they're called that because these Veda Angas are what carry the Vedic culture forward through history. That's why they're called Anga. Now, with the 4 that I mentioned before, Shiksha, Vyakarana, Nirukta, and Chandas, the 4 Sanskrit components of those Veda Angas, now Jyotish is a must-learn, not accidental, not maybe, maybe not maybe superstition because they believe in reincarnation. You're damn right we do. Excuse me, but we sure do. We don't just believe in it. We see it as the very fundamental basis of existence. We're all immortal beings. That's what this means. This is not hi, hello in some strange culture. This means you're an immortal being, and I recognize it. Now, what's the missing Veda Anga? Kalpa. Kalpa, which got called empty rituals. Excuse me, but I just told you who's doing the empty rituals. Modern science. Kalpa means all of cause and effect. That's what it means. It means whatever you do to interact with Prakriti is going to have a response. Let me quote one of those Upanishads for you, Isa Upanishad. Om Purnamada Purnamidam, 3 verses. Purnat Purnamudachyate, Purnasya Purnamadaya, Purnameva Vasisyate. Everything perfect and complete emanates from Brahman. Brahman is not diminished, and everything emanates and exists here. Brahman is not diminished. Next, Ishavasyam, Idam Sarvam, Yatkincha Jagatyam Jagat, Tena Chaktena Bunjita, Magrida Kasya Sviddanam. This is where the Devas come in. The Devas are the functionaries of nature, of Prakriti. Prakriti is functioning with departments, just as the corporations you're running do, just as every human enterprise does. These are simply, they're actually called archetypes. And Arka is the name for Surya. Surya, Aryaman, Bhaga, Tvastar, Pushan, Arka, Savitar, Ravi, Gabhastimat, archetypes. So these much maligned Devas and Devis are the archetypal beings of each in charge of all the departments of the laws of nature, of Prakriti. And finally, all of that culminates as Kalpa. It's how your stove works. It's how you light the fire each day. It's where you put the ashes back into nature. It's how you cooperate with Prakriti so that there's a future for the next generations that you just made. This is the 6th Veda Anga, and it's completely maligned, completely misunderstood. no one is understanding it right or explaining it correctly in the Hindu community. I don't hear it. These Veda Angas and the Vedanta, those are the secrets that carried the civilization forward through history. And if at this moment in history they can be properly reclaimed, all the chaos will clear up. The whole thing will become clear, strategic, linguistically correct. Never again will an English word that is inappropriate be used as a synonym for a Sanskrit word. The rituals, much maligned, the so-called idol worship, all of that Catholic propaganda against the Vedic civilization will be undermined, destroyed, put in its place. And P.S., it was the Catholic Church that destroyed most of the world, not the Vedic civilization. It was the Pope that sent out all the ships to steal from everyone. And P.S. to what you're doing, to your great savior right now, you are acharyas of this kalpa. And everyone else is culpable. Not a bad word, huh? They're culpable. They're destroying the planet and not giving back. They're not dharmic. They're not doing seva. They're doing slava. They enslave African civilizations and other civilizations. Has enslavement stopped throughout the world just because we're not paying attention to it? Or is it where the chocolate comes from, the coffee comes from, the tea comes from, and a myriad of other things? You are the great hope of the world. You are the seva civilization, and with what you're doing, you may just change the game, or you may just fall in line and play along. And you know which side of that I'm on, and now I have used my time. So I'm going to hand the microphone back to you, and with deep gratitude for this opportunity for seva, thank you so very much for letting me be a part of your community.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey G, for that very insightful session. And I think one of the requests that came in was if there was a database you had with all the amazing words you use that we could start incorporating in our daily language. That would be something that I think a lot of people are asking for. So we'll connect on this.
What a coincidence. I'm writing 3 books right now about exactly that subject, and we're looking for funding for publishing them. The books are just about ready, and we need a little oomph to get them out in the world quickly and effectively, and then instigate the worldwide program of learning how to talk about the Vedic Dharmic civilization. So thanks for that great question. Yes, they're forthcoming.
Looking forward to them and connecting with you on that. I just wanted to quickly once again recognize Jeffrey Armstrong's recent award that he won, and a little bit of background on that. The Consul General of India, Mr. Manish Ji, conferred the Indian Council of Cultural Relations, the ICCR Distinguished Indologist Award 2021 to Mr. Jeffrey Armstrong, founder of Vedic Academy of Science and Arts, and the author of the Bhagavad-Gita Comes Alive, at the event which was held on the 26th July 2022 in Vancouver. Mr. Armstrong received the citation and an award from the council. Mr. Armstrong becomes the 7th recipient of this award and joins the earlier distinguished recipients of this award from Germany, China, Japan, UK, South Korea, and USA. This award recognizes Mr. Armstrong's 4-decade-long contribution in research and teaching of the Indian studies abroad. The event was attended by distinguished guests, various diaspora and organizations, and media representatives. Such a great honor to have you and with us, and truly very lucky for that, Jeffrey G, Kavinder Rishi Ji. With that, we have an open question answer, and I see people are so accompanied with these sessions. They are already sending them away, so please do. So one question we did have was, how are we going to preach and engage the Gita knowledge to our kids?
I'm hoping you won't preach, because that's what ministers do from their pulpit. That's when they're telling you that Christos doesn't come from Krishna and charismatic, but it's a word that they own. Copyright Christianity. Sorry, folks. It's just borrowed Sanskrit. Not just borrowed Sanskrit, because it's Krishna. You know, Christos. You know, Christmas. Christmas, Krishna's month, as it says in the Bhagavad-Gita. Yes, indeed. What are we going to do about all of this misunderstanding? So this is the issue. Very much, we are going to stop using the wrong terminology and educate the world on the correct terminology. And if they're not sincere enough to do so, let me just point out one more thing to you. I don't know if you've thought of this, but think for a moment. Tell me another civilization in the world that you know of who has a book like the Bhagavad-Gita that they're eagerly translating into English. Does China have such a book? I've done a lot of study and I've never seen one. How about Japan? How about Korea? I'm not being disrespectful. I'm saying, where are the self-actualizing literatures from these cultures of the world? Does Russia have one? Obviously not, by the way they're behaving right now. How about the rest of Europe? No, they don't. So this means they not only have just one lifetime, but they have just a couple of books. The Christian Bible, the Torah of Judaism, and the Quran of Islam. And I don't care if people have those books as long as they don't try to force them upon others at gunpoint. Frankly, I don't care. It's up to you folks. But it's very important to understand, I don't see any other self-actualizing civilizations. I don't see any others that teach the viewpoint of many, many lifetimes. So don't you think it's incumbent upon the culture of Bharat to make this our priority number one without being coercive or forceful or disrespectful? There's billions of people out there who would love to hear what you really stand for. They're just waiting for it to come out in their language. And with a little money put into this, because there's so much abundance out there, a little funding put into this, the Bhagavad Gita could be in every language on this planet as the number one book talking about these things. Okay, there you go.
Incredible. Again, the preach is that one of those words that we will be eliminating from our vocabulary for sure. Again, I wanted to recognize one thing, that this session was sponsored, but by an anonymous well-wisher of the CHCC, and that's the way we are able to host such amazing, engaging sessions. So if you are wanting to sponsor, please do get in contact with our president, Naresh Chabra ji, or our vice president, Kushagra Sharma ji, or myself, and you can for sure find out more ways to get involved in at that lens. We also have a very special guest in the audience today. We have Mr. Subhash Chandraji. He's the Ekal Vidyalaya Canada president, and we're very lucky that he's joining us today. Back to the questions as they're eagerly coming. Is there a favorite quote that you have from the Bhagavad-Gita that you really love?
Yad yad acharati shveshtas, tat tad evetaro janaha, sayat pramanam kurute, lokas tad anuvartate. If one pursues the example of great acharyas, all the world will follow your example. I would know nothing about all of these things that I'm speaking about if the great acharyas of Bharat had not come to me in my darkness, and Omaganati Mirandasya Ganangana Salakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Genatasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Without those great acharyas, even with imperfect language at the time, imperfect English, their Sanskrit was perfect. They were brilliant. They embodied what they were bringing. They showed it to us. They lit us up from the inside, and they made it available to us. So, yad yad acharati shveshtas. An acharya is one who lives the way they talk and talks Veda. Talks that which is beneficial to all living entities, which is Dharmic, which cooperates with Prakriti, which is rooted in Brahman and in the ultimate seva of Bhagavan. Jai Sri Krishna.
Thank you for that, Jeffrey G. So if you have any other questions, please do put it in the chat. We had a great suggestion from Mr. Desai Ji, if we should start now a Vedic chamber commerce, and we're very happy to say that our weekend sessions are very focused around our Hindu Vedic rituals, and our Monday to Friday, like any business, are very focused on our commerce related events, and so that's the way we bridge it together. I think with that, I want to pass it back to Jeffrey G for some last remarks, and then I will pass it back to Kushagra Ji after that.
Thank you very much. And I do want to take this opportunity to honor a great friend of mine, Rajiv Malhotra, who in his various books has also shined the light upon these subjects. And we're very good friends, and I do believe he won the award before I did. And if I'm correct, justifiably so. And if he hasn't, he certainly should, for all of his great work. Now, just one small detail, and it's not a criticism, it's an improvement. And that is that non-translatable is not correct English. And this is the kind of pitfall that one can fall into. Non-translatable would suggest that the meaning can't be described in a language. The actual term is no synonymity. There is not a synonym in the English language for that word. Translation is translatio, it's Latin, and it means to carry across. If you're careful within English, you can carry the meaning of a difficult Sanskrit word across. Let me give you a quick example. Prakriti, which I've used several times. Pra-kri-iti. Now, how do we bring that into English? Well, pra is related to the English word produce. English word produce comes from Sanskrit pra, to instigate, to bring into motion, to bring forth, etc. So, pra, kri, by the laws of cause and effect. Pra, kri, which is the ritam. Now in Sanskrit, the root word, so important in this, is the ritam, and the ritam is from the briha. The briha is what the great Rishi Brihaspati brought into the world via Sanskritam. And now this ritam gives us the kri of kriti, prakriti, which means by chains of cause and effect. So pra, to produce, kri, by chains of cause and effect. Iti, iterated again and again. That's the English word, iterated. But it's right from the Sanskrit. Itiratra, reiterated again and again and again. So this is the process of prakriti. It's not Mother Nature. It's not just nature. It's not just science. It's prakriti, and it's happening within time. So when Bhagavan shows his Virata Purush in the 11th chapter, Arjuna says, "Who are you?" And he says, "I am time." Kalohismin, I am time. So all of this important learning is the very fundamental next step. And Rajiv Malhotra did a brilliant job of standing up for all of this. He and I are dear friends, and I so adore what he does. But just a little bit more. He had a Sanskrit specialist, but not quite an English specialist. And so he made little mistakes, nothing that negated what he did. So here's what I'm proposing to you. The Vedic community needs English specialists to cure their English. Sanskrit pundits speak universally as their acharyas have, so that the centralist teachings come forward. And the Hindu youth need to learn both of these skill sets so that they don't lose their culture in the forthcoming years, but rather they know how to stand in it in the intelligence that they were given, the same divine buddhi. And so with that, thank you very much, and I'll hand the microphone back.
Namaste, everyone. Thank you so much, Govinda Rishiji, for your lecture today. We enjoyed it very much, and I think we all got something that we can take with home and we can implement it in our lives today. For me, I want to go over the lines you've mentioned from the Bhagavad-Gita, and I'm going to go over them again. I think it was such an honor to be able to hear those inspirational lines. For everyone, thank you so much for joining us. I know it's right in the middle of August. Many people are away, but still we had a great turnout today, despite everything. And thank you so much for taking the time out of this very sunny, pleasant day to come online and join us. September 4th, 2022 is our next session. Please mark it in your calendar and be prepared to join us. We will be sending you a reminder, but please mark it in your calendar so that way you're ahead of us and you can reduce our workload. So please, we hope to see you in our next session. And like Maharishi Ji mentioned, all of our sessions are through sponsors. So today we had anonymous sponsor who really appreciates what Govinda Rishiji is doing. And the only reason he wanted to sponsor it anonymously is because that's a sattvic way of doing things, right? It's not just for show, and that's what he believes in. So it was very nice to have someone sattvic like that do a very sattvic donation and sponsorship. It's already going into the type of Canadian Hindu Chamber of Commerce that we want to build up. So thank you so much to our anonymous donor, and we really appreciate it. And if there's our next donor or our next anonymous donor is among us, then please contact us like we said, so we can sponsor the next session as well. Last but not least, I want to thank our MCs, Kavita Ji and Vedansi Ji. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure having you guys MC our events. You guys are an integral part of CHCC. And hopefully we get to see more of you guys in the future. Thank you so much, everyone, and namaskaram.